I think a lot of people perceive it that way, and I think Matchroom may perceive it that way. Like,
this is Jonathan Aguilar for Pro Boxing Fans, joined by Stephen Espinoza here in Fight Week. Tank against Martin, Benavidez against Fosdick. Live this Saturday on Amazon Prime pay-per-view. Stephen, excited?
Absolutely. This is one of my favorite parts of Fight Week. Not this per se, no offense, but the process. If you've ever been fortunate enough to be on a fight event, there's a slow build from Wednesday to Thursday to Friday to certainly Friday, all the way to the ring walk. And with successful events, you can sort of feel the building energy and the excitement, and you're definitely feeling that today. And so it builds all the way through fight night.
Yeah, it's interesting. Usually the final press conference for the main event is on the Thursday, but it was on the Wednesday. Was that, strategic? And what impact do you think that has had on the fight week?
Yeah, I think boxing has always done a good job of dragging out the events for impact. Look at the weigh-in. It's, guys in their underwear, it should take 30 seconds and we make, 45 minutes out of it. But here, because there was too much for one press conference. You give Tank his day, you give Benavidez his day. It's a true doubleheader. You give them each their opportunity in their moment in the spotlight, and you extend the promotional flight of the week. So I think it works for everybody.
Tank Davis has become, a genuine superstar in the sport. People, in England, here, he's probably arguably the biggest name in the sport right now. What has that come down to? What's been the most important factor in that happening? Because not every boxer can cross over.
I think it's. I think it's the entertainment value, first and foremost, in and out of the ring. The highlight reel knockouts, the action, the fact that he takes an extra effort to entertain. I'm thinking of, some of his more theatrical ring entrances, including when he was over in the UK. Again, Liam Smith, it was?
Liam Walsh, wasn't it?
Yeah. Liam Walsh. I'll get my Liams mixed up. So that's one part of it, but I think what we've seen this week is sort of the last piece falling into place. And that's, there have been some times where, we all looked and said that Tank has succeeded in becoming a star despite being a little bit shy and reserved. That certainly is not longer the case. He's very comfortable. He's comfortable being funny and being playful, interacting with fans. He's not at a loss for words. So I think that's the last piece. He's truly entering his prime as a fighter and as a promotional entity.
Talks was about Frank Martin, obviously a guy who's unbeaten. It's been said a lot this week that he started boxing late, but a lot of people saying this is Tank's toughest fight.
I think physically it is. He's athletic, good power, good fundamentals. He's got the backing of Derek James and Errol Spence. He's learned a lot there. The one question is, Martin hasn't fought at this level on this stage against this level of competition yet, and that'll demonstrate a lot. But on paper, this is as a physical challenge, as challenging as any fight that Tank has had.
Just moving on to yourself, obviously, still working with the PBC, but obviously you were at Showtime, who ceased operating in boxing. How has that been sort of since Showtime left the sport? From a personal note, I'm guessing it was a difficult period. Sure.
There's. You pour your heart and soul into something and build something you're really, really proud of, and it's taken away. There's a mourning period, and especially for people who were there a lot longer than I was. There are people who have been at Showtime who worked in the sports department for the entire 37-year run of the sport. A lot of 25, 30-year employees, and I can only imagine what the loss must feel like for them, knowing that I was there 12 years and knowing what I felt. But things change. The media business, most of all, is clearly changing, and we've got to look at this as a new opportunity to continue to improve the sport.
Now, obviously, a lot of the PBC fighters, had exclusive contracts with PBC. They fought on Showtime, etc. One guy I did want to speak to you about who had a contract with Showtime, but obviously not with PBC, is Jaron Ennis. Once, obviously, Showtime left the business, he became a free agent, and Eddie Hearn snapped him up. What do you make of that? And what's the ceiling for him, do you think?
Oh, I mean, he's one of the brightest stars. I think there is no ceiling for him. I think he can be and will be one of, if not the biggest star in the sport. So I understand. He looked at his options. He chose the one that he believed was best for him. Still in contact with Boots and Bozy. Still very supportive of what they're going to do, and I still have a lot of pride in playing somewhat of a role in getting him to this point. And I know his story is far from over. I'm glad he was able to get a substitute opponent and keep it on track, because he's been snake bitten over the last year. Opponents dropping out, opponents pulling out, injuries, delays with purse bids. It's been a tough year. And I think he's on the verge of getting one of those superstar making fights that he deserves.
I know it's just business and things like that, but people will look at it and say, he was with you and now he's gone to maybe your arch enemy, Eddie Hearn. Did you ever think like that, or was it just purely business and that is what it is, and he's made the business move he thought was best at the time?
No, I think a lot of people perceive it that way, and I think Matchroom may perceive it that way. Like I don't see this as a personal rivalry with that. I'm not a promoter. I've never been a promoter. I'm a network exec. I'm an attorney, and I'm proud of what we've done. And quite honestly, I don't think there's anybody with the track record that what I've done in the sport over my 20 years in it. So I don't consider that I'm in a rivalry with anyone else, and that's why I certainly don't begrudge Boots doing what he thinks is right. He's got a long lifespan in the market. It wouldn't surprise me if we were working together again in the future.
Obviously, Deontay Wilder was another guy who was with Showtime for a long time, and back in the day, you tried to make the Joshua fight, and it didn't happen. A lot of people have asking Eddie, do you regret it now that we've now probably lost that altogether? And he said, look, you can't regret what's happened in the past, but from your end, is there slight regret that fight didn't happen?
I certainly regret the opportunity. I understand why the deal was not makeable. If there had been a reasonable deal on the table that didn't come with some objectionable strings, then the fight would have happened. The only regret is that from a business perspective, we couldn't get something that was acceptable to all sides. And up until recently, I still thought that Wilder versus Joshua is a massive fight. And we'll see. Look, I'm not ready to say that Deontay's career is over. That's for him to say. He knows how he feels. Certainly, losing a couple fights here or there to some of the top guys in the division doesn't end your career. But he's the only one who knows sort of where his motivation is, where he is physically and psychologically. And if he does decide that this is the end, I think he's had a tremendous career as one of the most exciting fighters of his generation.
Just finally, obviously this fight, Amazon Prime pay-per-view on Saturday night. How do you feel the PBC and Amazon link-up has started, and what do you think the future holds?
Well, look, from a fight fan perspective, from a fight action perspective, you could not have asked for anything more. I mean, it kicked off with the very first prelim fight with the Kermel Mouton fight, which was an absolute war, which you don't see for young fighters at that stage of their careers, and ended with one of the bloodiest, most action-packed fights I've ever seen. You got a very exciting Canelo Alvarez fight, action-packed there as well. I think this one may be the most action-packed of any of the three of them. When you've got, guys like a young Elijah Garcia in a very tough fight. You've got Carlos Adames, who's an action fighter. You've got Gary Antoine Russell with his KO streak. David Benavidez, who's a KO action fighter. And Gervonta and Tank. So I think this one is top to bottom. You really can't ask for anything more.
And, Tank Davis must-see TV, right?
Always, and especially this version of him. He's very comfortable with himself. I think he's got a different appreciation given the trials and tribulations of the last year. I think he's happy to be here and even a little bit more appreciative of these types of opportunities.
Just lastly, actually, now you mention it, he has been out the ring quite a while. What impact, if anything, does that have on Saturday night? I
mean, we will see. Some fighters, sort of adjust seamlessly. Sometimes it takes a couple rounds to get the timing back. Some of them it's a major obstacle. That's certainly a threat. Now, Coach Calvin is one of the best trainers in the sport. It's not an easy gym to be in. I'm sure that keeps him on his toes, but that's one of the question marks. It's a legitimate. I think this is close to a 50-50 fight. It's tough until somebody solves the riddle that is Tank. It's hard to pick against him, but this is as close to a 50-50 fight as Tank has had in his career.
Stephen, appreciate talking to pro boxing fans here in Vegas ahead of Tank Martin, Abs in Prime this Saturday night.
All right, good to see you.